This is the National Strategic Communication Committee. Specifically, it was set to help communication from our government side on things that affect our image as a country, on foods, on health, and the general image, especially on the side of tourism as well. The first impression of a country sells it. So without further ado, I want to ask that we pray, and then we begin our program. Let's humble ourselves and pray. Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for the gift of life. We're here, Lord, to discuss things that pertain to our country, our beautiful country you gave us. Talk about the beautiful things we have, not to mislead those who want to come and enjoy them. We pray for your wisdom and understanding. Things we discuss will be of fundamental impact to our next action. We pray this all through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. I want to invite Commissioner Watasa. He has some one or two remarks. Then we invite our next speaker.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much. Oichitiwa, Mama, we are so happy and blessed to have you. Our friends, I think we need to give an applause to Mama. I'm going to explain why. Mama, Oichitiwa Joyce Sebugwao, Chairman, and also my Obi, Odrek, and all our friends here. Mama, we have people from Minister of Agriculture, we have Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Health, our Minister itself, GCIC, none other than the Ndugu Director, Marcella, private sector, tourism actors, one of the biggest in the country, Amos Wekesa, my brother, here present, BTP, thank you so much, our brother, good to see you. I hope you are well, and I hope it's going well in Uganda. But we're also happy Mama, he's one of our facilitators. We are glad to have him. Public Square, media partners, UBC, others. We are so happy Mama to be back here again. Mama, as you are aware, we are the ministry that coordinates the communication function across government. That function has a significant component on the media. Media, like we say, can make or break. Media shapes public agenda. Media shapes perceptions within the country, within the region, and beyond. And Mama, that's where it ties in with what we are doing here. The media has been quite good, but frankly, there are things we also need to improve. As we know, Mama and friends here gathered, issues of business. Chairman and Team PACEID have been doing a good job within Uganda, within the region, all across the world. But it's a competitive place, and that's where perceptions become critical. Mama, we've had some bad stories in the past. There was a story, I think, actually in the New Vision, that water in Kampala is contaminated with fecal matter. This is the capital city of the country. It's the pulse of the country. There have been stories like food is being served with human genital organs in, Amos, I think we've talked about this. I hope Amos, the Tilenga, I hope you didn't migrate to Tilenga from Uganda, because what happens, Mama, we have neighboring countries with whom we compete for investment and tourism, where such stories don't actually appear in their mainstream media. So we are saying, as we work to attract investment, tourism, because tourism is very sensitive to perceptions. I think, Amos, you've talked about this. One story can trigger hundreds of cancellations because with tourism, it's pre-booking. People book in advance. So then there have also been issues like one rebel, or you have one case of probably Ebola, maybe which is not even completely proven, but it's all over the news, my friend here. The one who splashes the news is here. So Emma, sometimes as the team, we are like President Trump would say, what the hell is going on with our media and ourselves as government? Eh? It's like we are in a hurry to put out the bad news. Eh? Unfortunately for our friends in the media, they say bad news is good news. You are a journalist, you know that, Emma. But bad news sells news, so they drum up the news, and now media is online. A story breaks and it's all over the world. Ndugu Natif, you know about this. So, Mama, so we are saying this is impacting us negatively as a country. So what do we do as a government and with our partners, also from the private sector? What do we do to ensure that the media agenda supports efforts to promote exports? There have been stories about aflatoxin or alleged aflatoxin in our food, and I think I'm aware that we've suffered blockades on our posho and our other types of food. But some of these, Mama, it has emerged actually that they were not really cases of aflatoxin, because they're frightening, they affect our markets in the region and beyond. Our maize, you know, it's a lot of people grow this food across the country. When I hear, sometimes I can see Amos he's a bit frustrated, yet I also know he's a patriot. Sometimes he's at pains. I can read his tweet or post. I can see he's trying to restrain himself, but he's also angry. He wants to bang a table. You know, so we are saying, what do we do, Mama? And that's why we have these friends of ours. Mama, we are also so happy to work with the PACEID, the Presidential Advisory Committee on Exports and Industrial Development. It's chaired by none other than Chairman, who is right there next to you, Mama Owechitiwa. Him and the team have done amazing work, which I'm sure they will summarize for you. But that said, we need a supportive communication and media agenda. So we shed a spotlight on the good things happening in this country. But we also need to mitigate and maybe do away with the negativity, so that all these and other efforts achieve collective aspirations for us, because the economy is circular. When we promote exports, we reduce the trade deficit, we create more jobs, like His Excellency the President has been saying. Odrek, I've been reviewing, I don't know the current status, but our trade deficit is still huge. It's more than $6 billion. I think it has reduced a bit because we have exported a bit more coffee now and the other products, but it's still high. So we need to address that.
You stepping off what you are doing to make sure that we commission this work. The word is not commissioning. I think it's just say we are in the trenches. And those trenches require fighters, foot soldiers, commanders who make a difference where we are heading. So the reason we are here is to go back 12 months ago, I think it's a year now, to try and see, is it, so we asked ourselves a question, is it possible to create one whole government communication approach? Is it possible to get various ministries to speak with one voice on things that matter for the country, share resources, and help the citizens and the business community and those who visit us and those who invest in the country to get minimum unanimity of what country is about, government does, citizens do, and who we are. Because who we are is a function of not just how we live, but how we tell our stories to the world. And so I just want to begin with Commissioner Watasa. You did a good job to give us the context. So I hope I don't have to go through the reason, the deep reason why. It's not deep. It should be work that we do every day. What's the source of these stories? because there is contention between freedom and regulation. There is contention between democracy and letting religions and media and everybody do what they want. There is contention between new ideas and old ideas. There is contention between what family means today and what family meant 40 years ago, 20 years ago in some countries. So it's an evolution, it's an evolving situation for households, for countries, for governments, and it's an evolution driven by change in economy across the world. Many people are becoming wealthy. Technology is an enabler, and there is no point at which we say things are settled, we should do what we always did. Every day we have to think of how do I disrupt what I did yesterday so that I remain relevant. So the source of these stories, in my opinion, that often go unanswered, that for us on the export side, we meet in boardrooms where we are looking for export deals. So you are speaking about Uganda being a good sourcing place, but their story is run by your own formal press, and you cannot really say, no, that's not us. It's a government newspaper. It's public channels. So the only thing you say is that we're a very democratic country. We allow everything. We don't restrict what's in our bedrooms. We're very free. We don't put barriers on what people should say or do. But deep in your heart, you know that that's a little bit of anarchy. If yes, you can justify freedom, but freedom beyond particular measure becomes anarchy, and nobody wants to buy from you or invest in your country. I think that these stories come from the lack of a collective vision. A collective vision for, so I speak openly, and every time we meet, whether we take action or whether we go and go silent or have some imagination why we are here, I want to make use of every time God gives me a microphone and an opportunity to speak. The NRM expanded because it had a collective vision that you must subsume when you are small. I was 17 or 18, and I remember our first cabinet as a young boy. That cabinet was such a diversified cabinet in every way: religion, tribe, I think maybe color. We didn't have an Indian minister. We had Shafiq Arain, Bote's last government. But it is because we were small. And when you are small, you're strong. Those of you who read the Bible, Paul says that when I am weak, that is when I am strong. Because I know that I really have to work hard, not my own effort, but trust in the collective good of what I'm trying to achieve. When you are small, you are like espresso. Espresso, those of you who drink coffee, is really good concentrate. If you take good double espresso, single origin, like Bulambuli, and you are not a good coffee drinker, you have kamunguruze. But the ordinary coffee drinkers take Nescafe, they take Americano, cappuccino. I don't drink those coffees, I take espresso. Because espresso is ideal to mix many more other cups of coffee. So when you lose that espresso-ness, you tend to have less collective vision. You have departmental visions, you have ministry visions, you have personal visions, but really there is no sense of collectiveness on what is important. So every day I wake up to do our export work, I am convicted that I have to speak to people who don't like me, who don't like what I look like, or where I come from, or who I'm married to, or my views. I see them every day, but I am convicted to work with them so I can convince them to restore the collective good, because without it, we will keep firing blanks. Now, when you have collective vision, sorry, I kind of lost it. So how I used NRM. You don't have to think of NRM if you don't subscribe to that thinking. As a young boy, I remember men and women in gumboots. Really, gumboots, they were special district administrators, but they had a sense of respect by the public. They enforced certain discipline. In fact, those are just yesterday. I come from a place called Shema. That's where my parents many years ago migrated. There was a chief, a Muluka chief, called Azaria Bingaya. He knew, he died in 1962. He knew who had brewed alcohol in that village, in the parish. He knew who had not paid alcohol fee. He knew who did not have katandalo to dry plates. He knew who did not have a pit latrine. He knew on his, and if he showed up on your doorstep and the children have not gone to school, you disappear. Azaria Bingaya was stronger than today's permanent secretary, but he was liked because he enforced discipline. Because there was a collective vision that our area, that area was, that's where a man called Mungonya, our first lands minister, came from, 1948. Mungonya introduced land titles where people would chase him away and they want Kalanda land. He said, no, you must fence your land and have land titles. It's the same campaign the president picked in 1967. So, it doesn't matter how few you are. Like now we expected 15 of us, we are fewer than 15. But those of us who show up, I want you to know that to deal with these stories, you need to begin to build a collective vision of what the country should look like, where the country should go. When you build a collective vision, then you have unity of outputs. It's very, very easy. Very easy. Then you can say, Aineviona, just use you as an example. Before you release that story or before you answer it, there are some nuances you may not know. Someone is staging this for something wrong. And so let's now have an answer that captures all elements and we can defend it even if we don't represent Ministry of Health. Because we know that this, we will lose jobs if we don't have unit of outputs. When you have unit of outputs, and now I want to stop and just thank you, people who are on that platform. I think there's a platform that started like 10 months ago. Commissioner Watasa, I don't know if you are on it. There's a platform of this team and other government officers doing communication. Once in a while I go there and I see that they are beginning to share problems. They are beginning to say, but you, why did you put out that tweet? You, why did you do this? It's there. Honorable Minister, I think if we had time, they would show it to you. I think we should have Minister of ICT and National Guidance on it. So those 10 months, you need to assess the change you have created between each other by knowing, you know, now Amos does not have to talk angrily about Ministry of Health or tourism. So it just a simple platform begins to build coordination and the collective good. That platform or the collective goodness deals with external image. I just want to tell you, I kind of would freeze in a Chinese boardroom or in UK when someone shows me a story of New Vision that says a whole different reality which I'm painting. So I know that a human being has multiple dimensions of reality, but this one you can't run away from it. It's said by your own people. And so external image comes from internal discussions and the conversations we have on social media and in other ways. And if you take tourism, health, agriculture, security, I just wanted to thank you that there is a bit of coordination Margaret, I see you communicating about the Minister of Foreign Affairs. When, I mean, I don't know where Amos would find the Minister of Foreign Affairs in his day-to-day. Yes, but at least she tells you, we are here, we are doing this. It's a good beginning, so I don't want you to feel bad. Slowly by slowly. That's why I thought, let's have some luncheon. And these people just did tea and coffee. I wanted us to have a real meal and say, let's talk when we have our meal and assess so far what has happened. So, very quickly, I wanted to read you for purposes of, so you think coordination is only comms. I was at the office of the Prime Minister this morning, and the reason I went there is there is a loan government is taking to enhance market access, and very big language, market access, production. So it has food seed reserve, export animal quarantine, land border export facilities, 8 zonal labs. You know, these things are coming in our country, but they touch Ministry of Trade. So Ministry of Trade, as an example, has facilities in Pondwe. So if you talk to Maif, you can shift those facilities and have them in Sironko. Just coordination. The loan is good for the country, but without coordination, we can repeat what Brenda has already done, and then we come and do it. Huh? So it's not just comms. It is government, whole government speaking together. And the session we had yielded fantastic results. We have another session on Friday to say, you have Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of, all of them sit together at 8 o'clock. One document should go to Cabinet. Now, so I'm taking private sector people. I want to see that the coffee man is there, the fish man is there, so that there is some unit around what private sector does and what government plans where we are not. Huh? That's how you build collective vision, so that when they say something inaccurate, you say, Olimba, this one we know. So coordination is extremely important. Once we start with comms, you will see that it will help us in other areas which we are not dealing with. So I have a letter written on 2nd of March 2025 by the President. And I just wanted to read quickly to you because it summarizes our tasks here. It says establishment of the National Strategic Comms to develop a one whole government approach or one voice system for our people, our allies, and the external market. He says, in the recently concluded retreat at Chankwanzi, we adopted a whole government approach to our planning, execution, especially communication, to avoid misrepresentation of government policy and outcomes. For example, why should a district medical officer announce the outbreak of a disease in their area, even if this is key for health of the population, without consulting the people who trade and export our goods and services, or the ones that bring tourists to our country? The public officials should know that not one arm of government can succeed outside the collectiveness of the whole. The wananchi or our allies outside don't see departments of government, they see government service as a whole through those who represent it and how they communicate and behave. This disparity in messaging of government programs, I would like it to stop because it harms our wealth creation drive. Therefore, in order to centralize and harmonize our communication, build and protect Uganda's image in the markets and manage our national reputation, I've created a team comprising of representatives from sectors of the economy that drive jobs, wealth creation, and markets. These sectors are frontline in building Uganda's positive image and coordination of our production standards, investment, and security. What government officials say in the media and outside is important to build or lower confidence for investment, exports, and harmony among our people. And then he lists names of this team. And he says, by this circular, I appoint Simon Kaheru to chair the committee, and then the secretary, the PPS, to be an ex-official. But really what I wanted to raise is the committee shall be responsible for the following tasks. 1, centralizing and ensuring consistency in government comms, communications. This committee will act as a central hub for all government communication outputs, ensuring a unified message across sectors and stakeholders. Number 2, monitoring and responding to media coverage. This committee will actively monitor both local and international media, identifying, thank you, give me some water. Identifying both local and international negative media and flagging. The committee will actively monitor both local and international media, identifying and flagging negative narratives and formulating swift responses to mitigate any adverse impact on the country's image. Number 3, anticipate and manage potential crises. This committee should proactively identify potential crises, issues that could escalate into crisis and develop strategies to prevent or manage them effectively. Number 4, build capacity and enforce discipline. This committee should provide training, coaching, and guidance. Thank you. Including cabinet ministers, permanent secretaries, on effective communication strategies. Finally, collaborate with key stakeholders to improve Uganda's image. This committee will work closely with government agencies, parliamentary committees, local governments to awaken the conscience of leaders about the danger of false media, about the country's growth efforts. This is to help coordinate communication efforts on key sectors of the economy, security, production, and trade. I can just stop there. So those are the tasks of the committee, and he was kind to guide us to Mama, your ministry, and said, Chris Bariomunsi, and the ministry should coordinate this effort, especially in the next 6 months. So you know what that means. If we have negative press now, it gets worse if we don't have a plan and a unified vision and a coordinated strategy. So the structure of our work, I think, should be research, train, provide technical support, and leadership. That's why you see Adam there, because we asked Adam, who is BTP in UK, to spend 15 minutes telling us how the Labour Party works in and out of government, to sort of centralize comms. That's why we had the first topic with Simon Kaheru and Marcela Kadeche on what causes these problems. And then we have, because this came from an export comms embarrassment, so Dr. Mwambu will speak about standards, interceptions, and bad reporting. Alan, if we can just give each 15 before Mama Joyce speaks, so that it kind of guides us on the structure and technical support these institutions require. Fortunately, I've worked with all these institutions, trade, agriculture, so I know the weaknesses. I know many of these weaknesses are not intentional. It is just the way we've structured government. It's the way we relate with each other. And we've split a small cake instead of keeping the cake together and really looking for technical skills to get a good job done, and we end up not really delivering. So I wanted to stop here, really, to not take any more time, but just to give you the reading of where I see the pain points moving ahead. I think it's important to know the next 6 months, some things will come up that we need to think about, or at least those things the president talks about regularly, which should strengthen our messaging, which we should begin to research and get more facts about, and figure out how to communicate them on and offline, and have a sense of collectiveness when we speak about them. The first pain point I know that he speaks a lot about is completion rates for primary schools, UPE, the dropout, a program that we've put a lot of money since 1997, and completion rates are very low. So you can look at how much money we've put in UPE versus the school charges versus how many kids are retained, and then begin to find a way to communicate on what can we do in the next 6 months, in the next year. So the second one I know is medical. Medical government health centers, the stealing of medicine. Because these are, so we are in Sheraton, but these are painful things for people in Bulambuli, painful in Chivoga. We have fuel, we have a car, but these people showing up in a hospital and there are stockouts caused by certain things. So comms, we need to think quickly how to answer those. The third one are these feeder roads. I was just reading an article by one of the reporters before I walked in, saying Uganda is broken or something. Has anyone seen that article in the Independent? It's like Uganda is broken, gone, finished. It's no country. There are potholes in Kororo. You read the article? So I don't want you to be negative about your country, people. It's okay. It's okay to have, well, it's not okay to have potholes. But it's important that you figure out how to find solutions than just be negative. Everything is gone, finished. So, but you may know that those feeder roads, truly, if you go to the road between, I think it's Mityana and Chegegwa, or the road between Karuma and Arua, or between Masaka and Mutukula, there are problems. Those roads need to be fixed for trade, for exports. But if you go to the inside Maram roads, in particular locations that bring products into aggregation centers, so we need now, beyond this team, to look for GCOFs, the GCOF people in departments, in districts, to give us facts and figures on where the problem is so that we can push institutions of government to operate there and fix this. The other one I know is jobs for school leavers, joblessness, and the corruption at district service commissions. So I don't need to be detailed. You understand what this means. You've had people pay for jobs. I educated a child up to university. Now I really have to go and bribe to get this child who is qualified. So this, how do we fix it? How do we communicate around this? So communication is not just for external, it's for our people to understand what we're doing, what we're facing as a challenge, and the solutions we provide. The other one is PDM, which is progressing very well from the numbers we have, 3.5 million households, so far 2.1 reached. And so by end of this year, I think we'll close that gap. So there's a very interesting statistic. So 3.5 million households are women-headed, female-headed, out of 10 million households. But also 3.5 million are the ones outside the money. What is that? We need to find out. Are we men having like many homes, but not mentioning we have many homes? or is poverty associated with the lesser, the abandoned homes? And please don't laugh at me. I read numbers and I try to understand. How can these figures correlate very well? So PDM progressing very well, but in urban areas, it's a different. There are different answers that we need to deal with because urban areas have more numbers. You also know about fishing communities, the boats that cost a lot of money, the question of manufacturing and electricity and the cost of money and taxes on business community. These are things this team could start to research and think about as we move forward. Honorable Mama Joyce, I want to thank you for allowing to come and preside over the commissioning of this team. I want to stop here and see Alan. For purposes of time, can I call Mwambu or Marcella? Marcella, come. So when Marcella is done, 15 minutes, we have Dr. Mwambu.
A country's global image drives investor confidence, tourism, and export demand, and misreporting distorts perception, undermining hard-earned progress. So this committee exists to centralize and clarify Uganda's voice at home and abroad, which Mr. Rabogo has really put so well. So I think, let me list the challenges on persistent misreporting, which I think, like he said, has originated from the conversations he has in boardrooms when he's going to look for markets, because they're mostly around food, agricultural export, and how we are looked at really as a government, because everything undermines us in the end, and governments deal with governments. So I don't think someone will come to Amos's lodge when government is presenting a weak picture. You know, there's always terrorism, there's always this and the other. Now, distorted narratives on key issues like food safety, human rights, and security. These, I'm listing out where we're facing challenges, and I know most of you know. Unverified or politically motivated reports dominate online and global press. Lack of consistent, proactive government response leads to a vacuum. I'm in this space, and please allow me to comment. I'm sorry. Okay, these are not Simon's words, they are mine. So, what I've observed is that many government officials believe that perhaps the way to do things is to get a private report or a report that comes out of, say, an analysis of government, because government has cabinet, it has parliament, it has commissioners, it has all these people who sit in rooms and come up with problems or, you know, gaps and so on and so forth. And then your people get these reports with our private problems and give them to the media. So you find that something that would be addressed by parliament or a committee in government about policy and so on and so forth. You don't have funding for ambulances, for example. What will putting it on the first page of Monitor do? It won't get fuel, but you can see it with Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, and Plan. So we have a problem there. As GCOF, as you were saying, government communicators do not understand the sensitivity of some of these things, because every country has these problems, but you'll never find them on the first page, as if, you know, that is all we're about. So as we are thinking, I think we need to go back, Mr. Watasa, those are your people. There needs to be a structure. How much disclosure, and who do you disclose to? How much information? Auditor General's report. I spoke to the Auditor General recently, I think, or his deputy, and I asked him why his report is public. Because for them, by nature of their work, they must find the mistakes. And he said it. He said 99% is to find the problems, but unfortunately, that's what looks like is defining the government. So it is, the onus is on us, like Audrey was saying, to look for the good things that have happened and are still happening and push them to fill that space. Now I have really gone off. But, so agricultural exports suffer the claims of GMOs, pesticide myths. I have these conversations with Natif on the side, and he tells me that some of these things are just a very enthusiastic researcher who even doesn't go through the right protocol, Ministry of Agriculture said, and then somehow it makes it to the news. Why? I don't know. And then you find that Odrek is trying to rebut a New Vision report, which hasn't even originated. He's there as government, and he doesn't even know where in government this report sits. Tourism numbers drop after negative travel advisories. Mr. Wekesa, I apologize on behalf of government, because recently I think we had a travel advisory from the US who were put, I don't know, on level 2 or something, level 3, because of a planned demonstration, which by the way was just, it stopped on a poster, on a flyer. It didn't even happen. Now, I don't know if it's Margaret who has to come in and go straight to State Department and say to them, you know, everything is under control and so on and so forth, because we're going to have this. These people have no interest. They will just protect their people wherever they are. So don't go to this country because there may be war. They don't care what happens after that. So I think we have to be a little selfish and quick on our feet and go in and just remove all these narratives. Trade partners delay decisions due to unclear narratives on governance and security. I know that probably Audrey will have more information on this, or Ministry of Trade, but I know at the back we hear these little conversations. They come out. Uganda's image as a reliable and safe partner is weakened. Now, the strategic response of this committee: how to handle misreporting. Establish a rapid response desk for real-time fact-checking and rebuttals. As in government, I must tell you that some of our people don't have these facts quickly. We suffer. And why? Like you said, the way the system is, the commissioner will have the facts, but may not release them because he hasn't been authorized quickly, right? So I don't know where this rapid response desk will sit. I think the person must have a stick or a gun. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, I sound like a dictator, but I know I have worked with these people. Information doesn't come that easily. The good news, but the bad news will run. Number 2, engage all media houses, print, digital, TV proactively. Now here, again, I'm speaking because I'm in this space. Engaging media seems like it always we must talk and beg you, please, we implore you to cover us. No. There is an element of regulation. That is why Mr. Watasa was saying that in certain countries, you never see certain things. It's not by mistake. There is regulation, and I know everywhere. I mean, I will give an example of Britain. These riots that happened, court sat at night to prosecute anyone who recorded a video or who posted something, some misinformation that would propagate or perpetrate these riots. And people stopped. It actually stopped people marching, I think, to London. I know that. So sometimes the stick may have to come over the carrot. Unfortunately, we have been so free and so wonderful, and so we're always laughing and happy, but it's costing us. And I know Audrey knows it's costing us quite a bit. So for me, I feel like media houses must be reminded of SOPs. You must know that the state must protect itself, because information is now warfare. It's a security matter. I mean, life and death. People fight war on media. Countries I never ever thought would see the inside. We have them fighting a war, and it's because it's hearts and minds. We're going to influence perception. So we shouldn't take it lightly here. A war can break out because somebody said something wrong, or gets a picture from, God knows, Burkina Faso and says this is happening in Chotera. By the time you come with a real Chotera video, someone is like, my grandmother is suffering. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so there is an element of regulation that needs to be pronounced over. You can engage the media, take them out, let them eat your cakes, but they must know that when you try to rattle a state, it may not be good. I sound bad, but you know that this is the only country we have, at least for me. I'm not going back to exile. That's where I was born. No. Now, use verified facts and figures. Don't just deny, explain. Because we're a work in progress, I'll use Ministry of Health as an example. Nation media, every day or every other day, has a hospital that has a condemned pit latrine, a broken pipe, so on and so forth. I know actually one time they covered Entebbe grade A, which had been closed, for grade B, and presented it as if it were working. And I remember I called Emma non-stop until the PS came out. Poor her, it was a Sunday. So it had spent almost a day online where they were taking us to buildings that were closed and saying, see where your patients are. I found that so unethical, but guess what? No one did anything to NTV and Nation Media. So sometimes it's not even about facts and figures. It's about that this is not working, it's closed. This is, this is open. Now, I think for government, we need to have dedicated teams online that this committee perhaps will talk to. Our GCOF people sometimes are understaffed. I know Emma probably works with less people than he wants, and so on and so forth. But there needs to be, in terms of resourcing, we need to get a team that deals with social media, like literally just going through every day as they deal with the mainstream, media, newspapers and so on and so forth, so that then we feed each other in real time. Partner with embassies and diaspora for coordinated messaging. I really commend Margaret and her team. I mean, like Audrey, where would we find Mofa? I think it was Watasa who said, I commend you. I commend you. Build a government media resource hub with data reports and visuals. I agree. I think that everybody we have this territorial thing about information. But I think if the Office of the Prime Minister declassified their reports to a certain extent, put them somewhere, allowed everybody who can access these figures and facts and so on and so forth about development, and I believe that would be better off, because these development partners of ours, at least for us who speak to these embassies, and they claim they don't get these reports. Of course, I know what reports they're looking for. It's mostly about what's going wrong. And so I think sometimes we are selfish, which is a good thing. However, we are selfish too much, because even our people inside don't get the good reports. So I think there has to be levels of access, declassifying, but also a central place where we can get these things. And I think Ministry of ICT should work with OPM, because I think OPM is in charge of getting these government reports, because they coordinate government business. So I think you should look into that. Sorry, I'm now the one who is advising government, yet I'm in government. But I mean well. So the power of facts, sample data to counter misinformation, food and agriculture. Uganda is a leading exporter of organic produce in Africa, over 80% of agricultural produce. You're welcome. My boss, Dr. Amina Zawede. I mean, you guys, we saw what happened in COVID. When we closed, for us, we ate every single day. Food was rotting, prices went so low because people had excess. But we failed to even talk about this beyond, because I know countries that were starving, that they were literally starving. They had no food after. Security, Uganda ranks better than many regional peers in stability indices, I think. Tourism-related incidents remain under 1%. Now, here security is trying now to open up, but they've been very caged and cagey about the information. We're trying to tell them that it is good to always present yourself as reliable. Don't always come out to rebut this and the other. I agree. And our people, this current team at police and UPDF, I think, are now more open. So we may have better chances in these last 6 months. Politics, regular elections held since 1996, vibrant parliamentary debates, opposition representation growing. Case study, abductions narrative, its current affairs, handling a controversial narrative with strategy, state-sponsored abductions are rising. I was speaking to one of our Ugandans who made it to the US government, and he said for them, they Google and see that there's insecurity, there's what, and then they wait for us to go to them and correct the narrative. So imagine, again, I hope I'm protected in this room. I thought their missions are here to give real-time reports that there's no war, there's no what, we are engaging, but I guess it doesn't happen. So again, Mofa, you actually need to, they said it to me straight. They said when they Google and find that someone has been up, claims, meanwhile, not even true, they will take that for truth and wait for us to rebut. Now, when we don't rebut, they then file that as what's actually happening. and for me it hurts me, because I was like, so every day when we say Uganda has grown, I don't know what we are doing better than our neighbors, and they don't see that. But I guess it's the reality. They don't want to see that. So that's why I think that regulation helps those countries that don't seem to be doing badly in the news, in the media, because they know who is looking for what and why. So, concluding, response strategy: clarify language, differentiate between arrests, detentions, and alleged disappearances, provide verified data. All 48 cases reported in 2023 were accounted for. Invite independent observers and human rights bodies, tell the human story, including testimonies of those found and reunited. Politics is interesting, because even here, there's a lot of the false story of the people who are kidnapped and they are never there, and so on and so forth. So we're always fighting to come up and tell guys, these people are lying. But someone who knows that he went to Canada and he has settled is busy straining the whole government to prove that he was not kidnapped, or he's dead. Even his family knows where he is. So I think I'm speaking as someone in this space. There has to be a way we shape the narrative. So if you know indeed you are going to arrest people for breaking the law, and there's a lot of confusion, you must then tell people what is wrong with having military stores, what is wrong with doing this and that. So that when you arrest a person, it looks like you've done a legal thing, which you have. But when you always come out after the fact to verify, and those ones who want to pick what they've picked have gone. Correct headlines with fact by reaching editors directly. For me here, I think that we now have a radicalized press. I please, if this is going to be recorded, but you have to make sure that this is not leaked. However, the truth is we have radicalized media. I know what Trump did in the US, we know how he fought, because he knew what it meant.
My role at the Ministry of Agriculture specifically is regulatory in nature. And we are tasked, the department ahead is tasked to do about 3 key things. One is to regulate the quality of inputs for crops, that is plants. So I wake up every day to ensure that Ugandans have access to quality inputs. These inputs can be categorized into 2. One of the inputs for crops is the seed, which is the beginning of life. And when you talk about seed, it is not only the true seed as we know it as maize and beans, but it also, the definition and the scope includes cassava cuttings, plantlets, like seedlings, like suckers and vines suckers for bananas, vines for potatoes, etc. The other one, closely related to those is the agricultural chemicals. There are those which are designed as plant protection products that we call pesticides, that you spray to protect the plant from pests or diseases. But there are those we call fertilizers, where you apply in the soil to provide the nutrients. So we regulate the seed and the agricultural chemicals so that farmers have access to high quality inputs. But then also, when now they have done the farming process, we also regulate the quality of the products, agricultural products, as they access the market. So my department is in charge of regulating the exportation, but also importation of any plant or plant product. And then you can imagine many things can come into your mind, issues of biosecurity. Now, when we are exporting, we have a duty under World Trade Organization to ensure that we trade in our products without the risk of spreading pests and diseases. But also we are supposed to man our borders, that any plant or plant product coming in should not introduce exotic pests or diseases. So that is specifically for plants. But under the Ministry of Agriculture, we also have an equivalent commissioner who regulates aspects of animals and animal products, and another commissioner for fisheries and fisheries products. So we are three commissioners who do regulation. So mine, I'm a specialist in plant health, and therefore that is what I do. So with specifically, before I go to the presentation, just to carry on what my colleague here was presenting, negative and alarmist publicity affects us greatly. For instance, and there has been a very consistent pattern, even some of it coming from our own newspaper owned by government. You find a very big screaming headline. Maximum residue levels are now killing all of us. And then the feeling, of course, is that all the food you're going to eat is poisoned and it's going to kill you. But indeed, as she really explained, there's this issue of freedom of expression. That is okay. But when you interrogate many of these alarmist stories, you find that the people behind these are not even authorities on the matter they are claiming to write about. I have had a very good person, this was my lecturer at university, Professor Ugenga Latigo. I'm also an entomologist. I specialized in understanding insects and how they impact on human, livestock, and the plant life. But he has volunteered to write 2 double-page stories in his retirement to try to dispel these kind of things. And that is quite good, because when it comes from an outsider, it might be more believed than when it comes from me, because when they allege, they'll put you in the dock. And even if you provided the same science, it may not be equally believed. So we have had that challenge. But also, there are activist organizations that are coming up that also mislead the public. There are NGOs, and particularly 3 of them. These ones, I will not fear to mention them, because they have been very, very alarmist in nature, threatening and frightening Ugandans out of their skin. One of them, which is very notorious, is called CEFROT, Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. The name sounds good, but their intentions are suspect. Then there is Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiation Initiative called SEATINI. Then there is another one called Food Rights Alliance. Now, you can imagine, without enough scientific evidence, they dragged the Attorney General to court before COVID. That was in 2019. And their reason was, why has the Attorney General allowed certain very hazardous pesticides to be still on the agrochemical register in Uganda? And by implication, me being the most technical person in government on agricultural chemicals, it was me in the dock. And the particular chemical they were fighting is called it's a herbicide we use for managing crops, glyphosate. Now that is the time when there were many various media reports about how toxic and hazardous this glyphosate herbicide is. So they also just ran with that without using any serious scientific interrogation. So I had to work with my team. We made a response because this matter was before the High Court. It is still there. And they were just running on alarmist stories. Now, for us, we also know and recognize that some of these pesticides can have effects to human health and environmental health. But the most important thing is you look at the pesticide life cycle. Where is its most serious risk Is it at production? Is it at transportation? Is it at storage? Is it at use? Is it at disposal? So when you look at glyphosate and glyphosate-based chemicals, they are the #1 weed killers, which has helped to reduce on the cost of manual labor for, weeding, especially in big plantations and everything. Now, for you to act on emotion and remove such a useful chemical without providing an alternative, and the alternative must be interrogated in terms of efficacy in managing the weeds, but also in cost, whether it is affordable. So without doing that, to just rush and say, let's remove it, it's a problem. But rather, when you look at the pesticide life cycle and you know where the challenge is, and especially with glyphosate, it is at the point of application, that those mixing should have what we call personal protective equipment, so that they do not get into contact directly with this herbicide. So this asks for providing information to the end users, restricting, like in those big plantations, that only trained people should be handling this chemical. And therefore, once you have those mitigation measures, you can safely use the product and enjoy the benefits without just unilaterally removing it from the market. So what are our major concerns? Now, our major concerns as the Ministry of Agriculture is one, to ensure that during the farming process, of course, the quality of the seed is important, the quality of the agricultural chemicals is important, but the quality of these agricultural products is of major concern, because it is the final product we are interested in for purposes of food security and purposes of trade. And while we clear these products through our inspection and certification processes, our major concerns are two. One is about the contaminants. That when you applied this chemical, did you apply the right dosage, the right frequency? Did you leave the recommended time before harvesting the plant part for human consumption, which we call the pre-harvest interval? And once we are comfortable with the lack of these contaminants, or if the contaminants are within the acceptable levels, then we clear that product for human consumption. The other key concern are the harmful organisms. What we call harmful organisms are basically pests that under World Trade Organization you are not allowed to offer for sale to another trading partner a product that will spread pests and diseases in their economy. And therefore, for international trade, that is very, very critical. So the declaration of emergence of a new pest or disease is very important, that only the people allowed in law to declare should be the ones to declare. But you'll sometimes find individuals who have not even known the science of this pest or disease quickly rushing to announce, and it can affect your market destinations and cause a lot of trouble. So really, that's what I can say on the media, but what I had prepared was also just to give you some information about issues of food safety, food health, what is it, what are our concerns, the science on sanitary and phytosanitary, how we define it, the measures we take to produce quality food, and the importance especially of having safe food to be offered on the market, both for domestic and international trade. But because of time, I think now I cannot run through most of these, but very importantly to mention is by safeguarding food health and enforcing robust sanitary and phytosanitary measures, we benefit in about 4 major aspects. You are protecting the consumers from foodborne illnesses and unsafe products. You're also preventing the introduction and spread of pests and diseases that threaten crops and livestock. And then you are enhancing the quality and reputation of Ugandan products in regional and global markets. And again, reputation, very, very important. And then you are enabling farmers, traders, and exporters to access and compete in lucrative international markets. And colleagues, this can only be done if the perceptions out there are good. If the actions on the ground where farmers are producing this food are also good, that they are following what we call good agricultural practices. Not spraying cabbages at midday, then at 2 a buyer comes, you cut the cabbage and offer for sale. That of course exposes the consumers to a lot of risk. So again, communicating all these things across the chain, that the producers must do their part to maintain quality. Transporters, you can't use food, you can't use a truck that the previous day carried cattle or chicken and you transport fruits and vegetables. You are contaminating this product. Even the transporters have a role. Where you pack, you sort and grade, there must be a unidirectional flow, that where things enter, do not mix with those coming in to avoid any risk of contamination. The facilities for hygiene on those sites where they are doing this packaging of food, all these are very serious considerations. So once again, I know time is not on our side. So as I close, I would like us to, all of us seated here, to reaffirm our collective commitment in upholding the highest standards in food health and SPS compliance. By doing so, we not only protect Ugandan lives and the livelihoods, but also position our nation as a trusted supplier in the regional marketplace. So I urge all stakeholders, government, private sector, civil society to work together in implementing and communicating these measures. Let us harness the power of knowledge, coordination, and innovation to secure a safer, healthier, and more prosperous future for Uganda. I thank you for God and my country.
My background originally, I worked for the UK Labour Party when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, and then I worked for the City of London Corporation as their Head of Corporate Affairs, and then I started working for BTP in 2016. And I am the Head of the Elections Practice for BTP, so I worked on elections in Africa, the United Kingdom, Europe, North America, and Asia. So some of the experience I bring here is not just from the United Kingdom, but it's from a wider international perspective. Audrey's asked me to speak on a few points. Firstly, he's asked me to say a little bit about the international media. The international media is a very, very important audience for you because it helps you connect with a number of your key international audiences all at once. That's the political audience, the diplomatic audience, the business investment audience, the tourist audience, all of these at once. So it lets you get a big bang for your buck if you get a good story out there. But there's another important thing about the international media, and we call this the halo effect. Because what happens when you get a story in the international media, it is re-reported back in the domestic media. But our experience has found that people tend to trust stories reported outside of your own country more than stories that are reported by the Monitor or New Vision. So if you get a story reported from the Washington Post, people will sort of look and think, wow, this is good, we take this seriously, yeah? So we call that the halo effect. So the international media is not just one thing, it's lots of different things. The first of them are those journalists who work for publications, the Washington Post, the Guardian, etc., but also the news wires. And I want to make a very, very important point about the news wires. These are very, very, very important because if you get Reuters or someone, Bloomberg, AFP, Deutsche Welle, one of these to pick up your stories, it will be re-reported all over the world. I discovered this most, and it's really crystallized for me when I was doing a project for the government of Zimbabwe. The new president had taken over from Mugabe 3 months in, 4 months in, and he said to us, BTP, what do the world think of me? What do the world think of Zimbabwe? So we did an audit of the international media and what they thought of Zimbabwe and the president. And one of the things I noticed, because I was looking all across the world, UK media, India media, Africa media, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, Canada, Australia, everywhere. If you get a story, a good story on one of the news wires, that will be reported all over the world. We got one good story about a manufacturing agricultural processing plant, very positive story. And I was going through UK media, oh, that Reuters story is here. Canada media, oh, that's familiar, I've seen that before. Australia, so, I mean, the good doctor in his previous presentation talked about seeds. If you can plant a good seed on a newswire, that will grow a forest around the world. Next point, I talked about those who work for publications. They're all the freelance journalists, who are fine, and they publish stories. You need to be a bit more cautious with these guys because they are paid to get stories published. So that means they're often a little bit more negative and controversial. So if you go for a freelance journalist, don't be surprised if you get something that's more negative than a guy who works for a publication. And the third type, we call them citizen journalists. These are people like their own operation. You know, people like Tucker Carlson. You heard of Tucker Carlson in America? These guys, they exist for their own self-publicity. And these guys are generally trouble. So my advice to you is just avoid those guys. Because the balance of probability, if you get a story with them, it's going to be negative, so don't waste the effort. Don't tell Tucker Carlson I said that, by the way. He's a good friend of ours. So the next point I'd ask me to talk about quickly is what to do in a media crisis, if you have a media crisis. And this is based around experience of the UK and internationally. Some of these points are obvious, but and some of the reinforced points that have already been made by my colleagues have already spoken, but that's good. Reinforcement is good. First thing, don't panic and get the facts. You know, you haven't got to solve this problem in 30 seconds. You've got a little bit of time. But make sure you get the facts, because if you've got the facts, you're on the front foot and you know what's happening. And have plans, but make sure the plans are adaptable. If you have a good adaptable plan, you're not starting on square one, you're starting on square 4 or 5, and that will save you some time. One of the important things on plans, and this is really, really important, is sign-off procedures. If you're going to make a statement on behalf of a minister, they've got to see it and approve it, but you don't want to be waiting for a day, 2 days to get the sign-off. You've got to get your sign-off procedures spot on, so you can get it signed off as soon as possible. That's really important. Then I'm going to use a football analogy. A good government communications team is a combination of attack and defence. You need the attack, you need to be on the front foot, making your points out there, attacking the opposition, but you need the rebuttal, which we've talked about already. You know, and the best operation I ever worked for was the first Blair government. We worked in a place called Millbank Tower in London, and it was a 30-storey tower, and everybody called it the Tower of Power because that's the Labour Party's communication operation. We actually only had the first 3 floors, but everybody thought we had the first 30 floors because we were so good. And we had the attack unit, did the attack, front foot stuff, and then we had the rapid rebuttal. When the media came for us, we were ready for them. When the opposition came for us, we were ready for them, and we pushed them back. Next thing, communication. Obviously, you know, we deal in communication, but one thing I would say, if you're in trouble and you're struggling, don't be proud, ask for help. The worst thing you can do is drown in silence. And you've got colleagues here in your own department and other departments who can help you. If you need the help, ask for it. Next point, don't lie. If you try and lie, you'll get found out. And if you're going to get through the crisis, you've got to bring the public with you. And if they don't trust you, you won't bring the public with you. And the last point on crisis comms, don't hide. Even if you've got nothing to say, just put out a holding statement, say, here's the current situation, we will update you later. The one thing you can't do is just hide, because if there's a crisis, people expect the government to be doing something. And even if it's a holding statement, that's better than nothing. Okay, next on best practice structures. I've worked in various governments, and some are better and some are worse. But one thing that you never want is chaos. And order is the absence of chaos. And the way to achieve order is to have proper processes, structures and protocols. I'll say a little quickly on good news as well. Good news is great, everybody loves good news. But often what happens is, you've been working on a project and the glory and the credit gets passed up the food chain. Just get used to it. That happens all over the world. You just got to get used to it. That's human nature, that's how it works. But the other thing on good news, and this is a very important point, you're all on the same team, you're all on the same side. This isn't like a competition between different departments. If one department, one government ministry has a great story, that lifts the whole government, that lifts your department as well. Yeah. Bad news. We don't like the bad news. And crises by their nature are unpredictable. But there are certain generic things that, types of crises. There's a terrorist bomb. There's a health pandemic, there's a travel accident. For each of these, it's possible to work out, if that situation arises, who is in charge and who has lead responsibility for that type of crisis. The next thing that's very, very important, which works very well, is something called the grid. The grid is basically a calendar, a comprehensive calendar of everything that's happening going forward months in advance. Government stuff, government announcements, opposition activities, but also, importantly, other stuff. For example, public holidays. Are the Cranes playing a big football match, a football qualifier? Because you don't want to be launching your manifesto when they're playing Guinea to get to the World Cup. And you need to know that well in advance, yeah? But I'm not going to tell my colleagues here to do naughty things, but there's other things you can do with big games like the Cranes. If you wanted to bury a little bit of bad news and release it, why not release it during the Cranes game when no one's taken any notice? I didn't say that, by the way. So, we've talked about this already. Communication is key. And what we need is a functioning, continuous, either WhatsApp or Signal group that is used properly and managed properly. But also you need a sort of a summary of the grid for the next 2 weeks, which will include what is going on, so everybody knows what's going on in every department, but when it's happening and how it relates to other things, so nobody is blindsided. And if people see a trap for their department in saying, I don't know, for example, we talk about health and Ebola. Tourism can say, oh, could you just think about us when you announce this so you're on the front foot? But there are cross-fertilisation opportunities we need to look at that are positive as well. For example, if you're building 5 hospitals, great, you're going to improve the health of that region, you're going to have more doctors and nurses, you're going to have better health care, but somebody's got to build the hospitals. So you tell the employment guys and the economic development guys, we are going to create 300 jobs, so they can push that as well. The positive aspect there. Regular meetings as well. This forum should meet once a month properly. Firstly, to forward plan and strategize, so you can go through these big announcements that are coming up, and nobody is blindsided, but also to share best practice. People will have been doing work on launches and events, and they can come back and say, well, we did this event, and this worked really well, and this didn't work so well. So it's about a continuous learning experience. Always learn from what you've done, so next time you're a little bit better. And what else? Voter research is important if you have a budget, because it's important to know what the voters actually think. Not what you think the voters think, but what the voters really think. What are their priorities? What do they like? What they don't like? That can inform your strategy greatly. So I would encourage you, if there is a budget, to do some polling of the voters. And then, planning a communications campaign. Oh, sorry, going back a second. In terms of the grid summary, either that's something that is circulated daily, or it's a continuous updated document on Google Docs or something. But it's very important that somebody has responsibility as the keeper of the document, because the worst thing that happens with Google Docs is nobody knows who's in charge of it, so you just get a document that sits there and nobody ever updates it. And then, just going through my final points to be quick. I mean, planning a communications campaign. First thing, what is the aim? Why are we doing this? Secondly, what are our key audience? Who are we looking to influence? Do a SWOT analysis. That's basically, S stands for strengths. What are the strengths of this project? What are the good things that are going to help us? W, weaknesses. What are the weaknesses? What's going to make it more difficult, and how can we mitigate them? Opportunities, O. What are the opportunities that we can link with other things, and what are the threats? What is going to make this more difficult? Be realistic as well. Expectation management. Whenever I take over an election campaign, generally we spend the first month sorting out the mess that the previous campaign left us by over-promising and under-delivering. As I said, the voters aren't stupid. You know, they know if you're over-promising and they don't respect it. So be realistic when you're doing a campaign message. Staffing as well. Make sure you've got the capacity, but some extra capacity. If someone's kid is suddenly sick and they go away for 3 days, how do we fill that gap? Measurables, have measurables so you know if you've succeeded or not. And finally, always do a post-campaign audit. What worked, what didn't work. So it's a constant learning experience. That's all I've got, thanks.
Sorry to hurry up, but I have another function which I have to attend to. The chairperson of PACEID, distinguished actors from the tourist sector, government representatives, private sector stakeholders, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. As we are all aware, the media plays a critical role in shaping how Uganda is perceived both locally and internationally. The narratives shared through news stories and features significantly influence public opinion, investors' confidence, and tourism interests. However, as the ministry responsible for communication and media, we have observed with concern that some media outlets continue to portray Uganda in a negative light. This unfortunately undermines the government of Uganda's ongoing efforts to attract investment, promote tourism, and expand trade opportunities. It is now for this reason that I am truly pleased to witness the establishment of this committee tasked with the important responsibility of addressing these communication challenges. Your role is central in defining Uganda's image and promoting a balanced, accurate, and constructive national narrative. I therefore challenge you to undertake this assignment with dedication, professionalism, and patriotism. We expect tangible results and regular progress reports on your activities and milestones. As your political supervisor, I pledge the Ministry's full support to this committee. We shall also We shall also keep His Excellency the President informed on your progress and key developments. It is now my honor and privilege to officially commission and flag off the Media Engagement Committee. I thank you and I wish you all the very best.
When it comes to communication between or by Minister of Health and the Minister of Defense, and those were, to be honest, our top two problems in the country in terms of communication. Well, they have very good things to talk about. They had over time chosen a negative narrative. So I want to thank PACEID for this good job. All the speakers had extremely brilliant ideas that they put forward. Marcella, Adam, the Commissioner for Agriculture. This have been extremely very important for us, for me actually, to learn as a businessman, because we're always learning. Learning never stops. But I also believe that this committee is actually being emphasized because we have not taken so much interest in creating positive news. I was just having a chat with Adam and I'm saying, during a Premier League, it does not matter how much negative news is there about the UK. Premier League, an expensive type of venture, actually suppresses every negative news, potential news for the UK. Now Uganda needs to first push the positive news. 2 gorillas have been born. We host 54% of the population of the mountain gorillas. Every newspaper in the world should cover that. In fact, 50% of the work will be done if we put in that emphasis. Of course, Minister of Health, Minister of Foreign Affairs now has 24 embassies right now that are going to get resources from starting this financial year, which is a good thing. And there's a lot of positive push by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A few of the centers or the missions. I think one of the things that I also see that we need to do, probably as PACEID, is make sure that the people in those foreign ministries actually have an understanding of what Uganda is all about. And we should also choose which missions play a key role for us in terms of tourism and in terms of export, and pursue or engage the leadership to actually get very good heads for those different missions. And there shouldn't be more than, maybe we start with 5 of them, and we just make sure that whoever's the ambassador, say in the US, the ambassador in the UK, ambassador in Kenya, all these guys have people that are so competent but also understand that right now we do not need to even use the word diplomacy. We need to use the word trade all the time, because the only thing that we need with any other country right now is trade. We don't need anything else apart from a few of our neighbors that we need diplomatic discussions with. So for me, key is that we have an opportunity. The government of Uganda is putting in some resources towards positioning of the country, but who positions it is also very critical. So your PACEID can also play a role in advocating for that. Uganda Tourism Board is getting new management, and I think they've done a good job in the selection of probably the new CEO coming in and marketing manager. I hope that we can engage them at a much better level now that they also have resources and a new leader. I've never been as excited as I am now about the future, and I hope that the political season this time does not affect our business. And those of you who talk to the politicians and those who make decisions, I am praying that nothing so negatively happens in this time, because things are starting to look up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, our PS and all colleagues present. Protocol observed. The Ministry of Health, I think ever since this committee started and we had our WhatsApp group, there's been great improvement in understanding one another, because I think even in communication, when there is no middle ground, there can be confusion. Because as the ministry, our core mandate was ensuring that we protect lives of Ugandans. But in so doing, some of our communication has negative impact on the economy, on trade, on tourism. And how do we pursue a middle ground to ensure that we save lives, at the same time we sustain trade, travel, and tourism? And I'm glad with the coming into place of this committee, we've been able to have that stakeholder interactions to an extent that some of the key communications this time round, we have an opportunity to review for the first time. Even internally, my bosses now ask, have your colleagues okayed this communication? There was no negotiation earlier. It used to be, Emmanuel, we have an outbreak. Let's have the media in the next 2 hours. And I cannot start saying this communication has to go this place, this place. The assignment would be, please craft the statement. These are the details. Invite the media. But now the discussion at least involves consultation amongst colleagues. And I want to see this coordination and harmony working together, because even on GCOF, we have, for instance, a member from an agency writing a very negative piece about another agency. Yet we are on the same forum where you would be able to consult and you have a middle ground. If you have, for instance, a challenge like a water cut, a disconnection of water from a hospital, I shouldn't come out before I've consulted finance, I've consulted national water to know where the problem is. And that's the direction we have to get. Because sometimes you might think government MDAs are in competition, which is not the case. So we are all serving the public. So we need to come out organized. And as the Ministry of Health, we pledge to do better. I have now become, I used to be an unavailable spokesperson, but this committee has made me unavailable. Because sometimes some interviews you go to, you will not avoid to be asked about what is the current, if for instance we have an outbreak, the media would be interested to know what are the numbers. So sometimes I wait to know, should I go for this interview? At the end of the day, what are the questions that are going to arise? But also, it's better to be packaged. I need to do consultation and go with facts, not go when you have hearsay. So if I'm going for a talk show, I must be ready. I must have prepared. I must have consulted. I must know what the position of government is from across board, not going as a single entity. So I hope this can be inculcated across with all our colleagues, and this is important that we begin with the government communications persons across all MDAs, the information and communication officers across all districts. Then also, once in a while, we have sessions for instance, the district health officers. Because every time they are quick to announce, we have anthrax, we have Crimean Congo. Sometimes I'm pushed to say, no, I haven't heard about that, much as I know. Because I'm trying, when they hear that it's come from me, it now becomes more valid. So I have become more restrained on when to comment on what. And I need to be empowered. Because this has to do in concurrence with the leadership in these ministries. You are aware there are the standing orders. Some PROs, I think some have never appeared on TV. Some have never done an interview or give a comment because they are not authorized to communicate. The technical people like Paul, Commissioner, might need clearance from the accounting officer to give such an information. And that is what it is. So it has to be a reset of all the policies that are existing and also the enforcement. We have the Media Council. I've not heard of the cases they have moderated and the actions, the punitive measures that have been taken in instances where misinformation has been peddled. Otherwise, I should be able to know we were able to handle these cases of misinformation. Because when you misinform and you just apologize without consequences, what does it mean? You're encouraging more publication. They are now online. Every day now, I think everyone now is a publisher. So who is responsible to ensure that they regulate everyone from being a media house? Because now when you look like at TikTok, someone has over 4 million followers. So if they put something that is misinforming the public, it is hard to contain. So, but the regulation needs to wake up. Both the Media Council, both UCC, we need to see cases arbitrated. There is a case I filed with UCC personally. There is someone who went and filmed at the Entebbe Isolation Center and had malicious information, but I have never had feedback on whether this website was followed up, but we wrote formally and complained. So we need to know what are these issues that have been handled and where should we report. If I see a story that really was very unfair, was malicious, should I just keep quiet, or there is a channel where I should have it pursued? I think I need to submit here and allow others to comment. Thank you.
I did want to, and I'm going to, comment about the question of travel advisories, particularly the one that had us all upset, the level 4 the United States announced. The Minister of Foreign Affairs did meet with the U.S. ambassador and has been meeting several other ambassadors on similar travel advisories. Now, the response from the U.S. ambassador is, first of all, this was not a new level being announced. We've been level 4 for 8 years. And when you're at level 4, they announce every 6 months. So whether it has changed or not, you will be announced as a level 4 every 6 months. So the question was that, how did we get there? And how do we get off that level 3? And they gave the usual generic answer, or we get it from public sources and all of that. But this question of, if you respond to us, we won't publish it, that's not necessarily true. Because many times we receive a final draft as a courtesy that here it is before everybody else sees it. It's not sent to us so that we can respond before they publish it. So they don't want your input, they're just telling us. So our job, therefore, is to keep on engaging and then hope that the public information out there does not contradict what we are saying. And many times it is contradicting what we are saying. So we may not like it, but we are arming them, if I could put it that way. And you're not going to get any miracles out of a Ministry of Foreign Affairs if all they're doing is reflecting what is truly there. So they threw it back at us and said, well, we challenge you to give us, a different environment to report from. So if there's so much negative information coming up on Google, how are all the other governments handling? Because it's not as though we are anywhere near the worst. No. We're not even anywhere near level 4. So I think we may not be managing search engines very well. The other governments do. It's one thing to engage the US government. I'm only talking about the US government now, but there are other travel advisories. But what I do know, having worked in DC, is that you may not get as far when you're a government as you would if you are a lobbyist. Because just about everybody, not just Rwanda, everybody, even the most advanced countries in Washington, they need the lobbyists. And for a long time we thought that's a waste of money. Actually, the media here in Uganda think it's a waste of money, but it's the currency of operation in that country. It's up to you. Either use them or don't use them. That's entirely up to you as a government. But basically the doors will open easier if you use the currency they recognize. So we can't prove that everybody else is using them, and that's why they don't get level 4 yet. They are so much worse than we are. But you know, there's some correlation in what is happening out there and what we see coming up. So regarding travel advisories, we are like the last person on that value chain. So if we don't deal with what's behind us, the foreign ministry will not deliver any miracles at all. So I thought we just needed to have that real discussion here. Okay? Oh, the other thing is about responses. Yes. Now there are responses that are, you know, that can come out, and maybe you refute something from whatever government department that is, and that's the end of that story. I would say that a Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a little different. Why? Because ministries of foreign affairs are very political ministries. They're not necessarily technical. So many times, if a chief executive, like a permanent secretary or a minister, comes out and makes a statement, it has so much more strength and can swing in any direction and take you all with it. So the levels of consultation when it comes to what the ministry will say tend to go right up to the highest levels. And so the speed with which you may wish to get a response may not be ideal when it comes to foreign ministries. There may be a way to get this done easier, but like in an environment like ours, in a region like ours, if you are surrounded, if you are Uganda and you have neighbors on all sides that may have their own internal issues, and you talk, or you want to give a response, or you simply comment, even if it is the truth, it may not necessarily go in the direction that you want. Your neighbors may not brush it off, for instance, while your own public might, and then it just grows into something else. So we have, even when the issue is internal, even when it's administrative, it's not as easy for us to come out there and speak. So the determination as to who will say what, even the CEO usually needs to discuss it with the political head. And so if there are solutions out there for how quickly we can do it, I guess we would be happy to discuss it with all of you. But yeah, foreign affairs is another kettle of fish, if I could put it that way. Thank you.
That they have been doing things then by not consulting the team, but now they have learnt now too. So I believe even MOFA, when things go ahead, they will once maybe the political head know that there's this team trying to help for the image of the country, I'm sure they will come around. So I want to invite Commissioner Watasa to make your remarks, and then invite our PS.
Amos, you said you've never been this optimistic. Huh? Yeah, that you're probably more optimistic than you've been before. I am as well, Amos, my brother, from the hills and the ridges. Why? Because as a ministry and as government, we're actually moving and making very good progress. I know PS is going to speak to this. For example, we have a new communications policy, which should go to cabinet anytime. And By the way, a lot of what we've talked about here is catered for in there. PS I know is also going to speak to this. We are also proposing some laws for amending laws to strengthen and improve regulation and enforcement. So some of the things we've talked about, the challenges, we should be in a better position once those laws come through. Because some of these things, it's real enforcement and regulation. Well, we can engage them, but there are guys who are big-headed. Sometimes you might want to wield a stick, Mr. Chairman. But talking to them also helps. So we do the two-pronged, but through the new laws that we are proposing to take to cabinet, but also take to parliament, we are looking at strengthening even the sanctioning aspects for non-compliance. So the outlook is good, really. You are not optimistic alone, Amos. Here we are. We're also looking at PS. I'm sure we'll also speak to this. We're also looking at how to improve the branding outlook of the government of Uganda. We have been working on this for a while with our PS here. I know she's going to shed a bit more light on that. Cohesion, we are the coordinating point for GCOF. I think, Emma, we've had you, PS has had you. I do the documents, PS puts the pen. If we just talking to GCOF won't be enough, maybe we will also do something. So PS puts a pen, not so Maggie. But as a minister, we believe also first option is engaging with the people. Marcella, if they don't comply properly, then I will do a document and the PS will put a pen. Because we mean business, don't we, as we are here. Adam, thanks a lot for what you presented to us. I've been learning again, unlearning, relearning. It's just amazing what you've been doing. PS, I'm proposing that when we have our trainings for GCOF, we could invite Adam Maddock to talk to these people. Audrey, we meet them from time to time. I think they need to listen to him. His presentation, I liked it, was so good. Maggie, as you might be aware, we are not doing very well with the don't panic. Sometimes we panic, we panic a bit, or even panic a lot. And when you do that, I think it's in the sport of tennis where they call forced and unforced errors. When you panic, you make mistakes. So Adam, we want to know if a guy by nature tends to panic, so what does he do? Don't hide. Maggie, how do we score on that? Emma, how do we score on don't hide? But don't overpromise also. Sometimes we overpromise. I read this week an article by Simon Kaheru about what he called. I actually told him I agree with him, but I thought his language was strong. About infrastructure and what you call the stupidity in He made good points, but I told him for me I would go around it, Audrey, what we call a euphemism. And but what he was saying, that he gets irritated, we government officers trying to explain away what is not explainable. So maybe therein lies a bit of the hiding and trying to cover up or spice it up, and probably that's where communication mutates into propaganda. So how do we reconcile the two? There are a lot of things happening. The PS is going to speak to them, but I am sure we can't exhaust them here. The policies, the laws, we are improving them, strengthening them. Even the institutional framework, the media council that was spoken about here. So the outlook, Amos, it's looking up. And, we are happy to work with all of us. We're in this together. So at this point, I have the honor to introduce our CEO and our inspirer. Every time she talks to us, we feel like doing great things. We feel like we want to do much more. So my PS, Dr. Amina Zawede, I have the honor to invite you to speak to these great people. I am sure we will not be the same after listening to the PS, because she tends to announce sometimes good things impromptu, and so you know. So who knows what she might announce? Eh?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Today we are here to commission the National Strategic Communications Committee. This committee has been in place since October. I think since October last year, when we had the retreat for permanent secretaries and ministers chaired by the president in Chankwanzi. That is when this committee was set up, and a lot of discussions, debates, solutions have been going on in the background. But today we've come out publicly, you know, to come up with solutions to what we are pertinently facing as challenges of this country. When it comes to communications, it's not a problem of government, it's not a problem of private sector, it's not a problem of individuals, but it's a collective problem that we are facing, because we all suffer the consequences of poor communication, miscommunication, negativity, and so on and so forth in many spheres. If somebody wanted to employ me globally as an individual, and they know Uganda is known for being nasty or bad, they will say, oh, she's Ugandan, and I won't get the job at individual level. If it is private sector, or we have our young people, Uganda has largely young people. You know, out of the 46 million, over 30 are below the age, over 30 million are below the age of 30 years old, with an average of 16 years Ugandans. So imagine, these are your children, they are looking for schools, opportunities, etc., and they are carrying this Ugandan brand or name. So the way we paint the brand or the way we display it will speak a lot on whether we lose or gain in whatever we do as Ugandans. So personally, I have been on the drive to kind of sensitize these young people. You know, the problem of communication does not come from government alone. We have to educate the whole population on how to communicate, on how to brand the government and country. Not, you know, when you say government, then they say, you know, it is government. But how to brand the country, how to dress up our country, how do we talk about it? You know, I went to, I forget one of the countries I visited, and I was picked up by a driver, I think it was Singapore. These drivers do not say anything ill about their country. Even when you say, you know, things are expensive, they say, but you're getting quality, you know? Someone else would have said, yeah, things are expensive. Maybe you should have gone to Malaysia near there. Things are cheaper. But everybody has that kind of nationalism and heart for their country and love for their country to promote it in whatever shape and status it is. So we are the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. And many people when I travel ask, but why national guidance? But I think national guidance is for a good cause. And we appreciate the head of state for having been visionary to think about it. Because as you do digital transformation, as you leverage on ICT, you have to guide your people on how to participate and utilize these technologies better in a way that protects and defends the country. Now, I have listened in, apologies for coming late. I have been running a marathon of engagements since morning. Now we are dealing with AFCON and so on. All related to how we are going to communicate when that time comes. Because, you know, social media hits you anyhow and anywhere. It doesn't matter who you are. As long as someone decides to start that attack, it will go for you. So everyone wants to protect themselves. But as government, what have we done? Yes, we have come up with that policy because a policy is a kind of an enabling environment for certain things to happen. Yes, we know that some of the public standing orders that we have in regard to communication hinder and bar us from communicating effectively. But I believe all governments have procedures and protocols. We do a lot of benchmarking. I don't know whether we've done benchmarking on communication. But government does a lot of benchmarking in so many spheres. So the countries we are talking about that you don't hear negativity about, what have they done? I don't think anybody goes and speaks, or any communication officer goes and speaks. They also go through protocols of approvals, but probably they are more efficient than we have. It is very important for us to have one voice when communicating. If health has come up with a fact about maybe the status of health, then all stakeholders, the tourism sector, education, everybody should, you know, propagate the same message. But unfortunately, this doesn't happen. Adam one time engaged our communication officers some time back. Yeah, I was very fresh as a PS. Yeah, yeah, we had that engagement. But if you ask me to do a dipstick on whether we did better after that or not, I don't know. But I know it has to be continuous effort. And this committee is not going to be a committee outside the structures of government. It's going to support the Ministry of ICT in delivering effective communication and efficient communication. Therefore, as we set up or put in place our policies, it will be very, very good for this committee to be like the give oversight over the enforcement of these policies, even come up with recommendations that we can follow through. Because as the committee, I'm saying our because I'm part of it, our responsibilities are not so many. By the way, they are very few, but very broad. There are only 5. The first one is to centralize and ensure consistency in government communication. I think something I've just talked about. Consistency, whether in crisis or proactive communication, we have to be consistent. But how do we do that? This committee will guide on some of the solutions that we need to put in place, or some of the guidelines we need to follow. Because we are a committee of people who are professional in comms, but also people who are, who are affected by negative communication, and also those who are enforcing. It is a mix of, people that will help us to get there. The next role of the committee is to mentor and respond. To monitor, not mentor, to monitor and respond to media coverage. And in that, of course, we are working through the communication officers. The committee has about 10 plus people. We can't do this on our own. We have to see that the structures work. I know I came in when people were saying we need professional journalists as staff in government. We need all these things. We need all these people. But the ministry took on communication officers when they were already recruited. I didn't recruit communication officers. Ministry of ICT did not recruit the communication officers across government, but we are trying to streamline and ensure that we step them up to the standard that we require. Of course, if certain measures are put in place, for example, when I was appointed PS, I had to sign the oath of secrecy. Some of these people have not signed, codes of conduct on how they should behave or how they should, take media seriously. Maybe that's why they're taking things for granted. So those are some of the things that this committee has to come up with as guidelines, and we shall enforce as, the mainstream government. The other role of this committee is to anticipate and manage potential crises. And I think when we presented the policy to permanent secretaries, they're saying, how are we going to manage crisis? Everyone fears crisis, what should happen? You don't know how people hide when I ask them to come to TV or, engage with media. This, including my including our bosses and all my colleagues, and people hide from the set. But there is a reason. Maybe they've been burnt before, or they don't know even how to manage themselves. They don't know how to manage questions, or they don't know how to engage. These media people, I think, really are hungry for information. When there is an information gap, they will run with whatever they have. So we need to just know how to educate everybody to be comfortable communicating when there is a crisis. And I think, Adam, from the tips that you have given, we should borrow a leaf on how to come up with probably guidelines or protocols for this kind of thing, so that we're not caught on the wrong side when it happens. Then the fourth is building capacity and enforcing discipline. Capacity building, training people. Today we are in the era of, being able to do digital comms, digital marketing. Government is supposed to be operating as a corporate entity. We are no longer operating like the traditional, government that used to happen. Today, if you're not aggressive, Amos says we should say we are trading and not doing diplomatic relations only. You have to learn the tools of trade, because you have to be aggressive, that's it. And governments that are aggressive have transformed. You saw Singapore as third country, third world, now it's first world. It's not magic that they got there. They just started to put certain things in place, and that's how they got there. So we have to have some deliberate and intentional effort towards, if you have a force, even if you are in a home and you have kids that are indisciplined, there is no way they can turn out to be good citizens. Similarly, if we have an indisciplined force of communicators, people bashing each other between MDAs, that is honestly not acceptable. And we should really put our foot down on certain things, and these are solutions that will come out of this committee. Lastly is collaborating with key stakeholders to improve Uganda's image. Yes, I have seen a number of times Amos invited to different countries to be the flag bearer of Uganda. We've heard about lobbyists, we've heard about utilizing influencers, and so on and so forth. As a country, we need to invest in that area. And that is where the challenge is. Every time we are saying we don't have money, limited resources, there are no resources for communication. For the last 2 years, we have had zero budget, zero, not even 1 shilling. Now, what has the ministry done in addition to the communications policy that is going to guide that? We have taken on all officers of communication and IT under the Ministry of ICT. This was a directive that came from Cabinet in 2016, that the ministry should be the mother ministry of his officers. Just like you see, finance is the mother ministry for procurement officers, accountants, internal auditors, Ministry of Public Service is the mother ministry for secretaries, for human resource officers. Office of the Presidency is the mother ministry for undersecretaries, even PSCs and administrators. So the Ministry of ICT took on that responsibility, and to date, we have brought all these officers and redesignated them. For those of you who are working with government, we've been having a number of titles. It is some are public relations officers, others are public, diplomacy people. Margaret, I don't know what your title is, but others are communication officers. It's a mix. We just didn't have any uniformity or standardization. But right now, we have streamlined and renamed our officers. At entry level, you have communication officers. Then the next level of growth in that career path is senior communication officer. Then we have the principal communication officer. Then the assistant commissioner communications, and then the commissioner communications. So that is the growth path. And with that, we have also come up with requirements, or what we call job descriptions and requirements for you to grow. So given that this opportunity has come during a time when digital marketing is key, we are saying that, for you to grow, you have to attain these skills. Because remember, I already have these people. They came in. I have nothing to do for them currently, but have to polish them up. Because, we cannot just chase away a force. We have to do our best to make it good. It's only after it has failed that we say, okay, we have tried our best. Please, maybe let's try somewhere else. But in that regard, we started off by doing an assessment, a digital skills assessment of communication officers in mainstream government. I'm going to tell you. We did, you know, we have this international computer driving license, ICDL certification. It's you know, the way they say you should, when you don't fail maths in all level, if you get, I think, is it pass? If you get a pass and below, then you will not have, your grade will change, and your grade will have to change or you will fail. Similarly, this ICDL certificate will tell whether you have some level of digital literacy or competence. Now, for us to have our communication officers communicate, there is no way they can run away from ICT or digital skills. So we did this assessment, and the reveal was, who can guess? So the average pass mark for these officers was 40%. You're an outlier if you did well. So it was 40%. And you know 40%. What is 40%? A pass? It's bordering on pass and fail. What's the difference? What's the difference between pass 8 and F9? But anyway, the point is that we are not, that is not a good, you know, it is not a good position for us to have such a representation of our officers. So we have a big job to do. And we are going to start off by skilling these people. You know, one of the responsibilities of this committee is to ensure that people, we build capacity and enforce discipline. So as we are skilling you, we are also telling you these are the do's and don'ts of your career. So we need people like Adam to come and now tell us how people should behave, how they should conduct themselves, how they should utilize the skill sets that we have availed them. So we are starting with the mainstream communication officers, and then now we are going to do an assessment of the communication officers of local governments. Then also skill them. So on our part as a ministry, we have a big role to play in building that capacity. But as we do it, we are also going to put in place certain things, you know, performance agreements of these officers. I think what has been lacking is that kind of intentional follow-up and follow-through of what these people are doing. Some of them are lying idle. Not because they want, or some of them might want, I don't know. But yeah, the reasons they give is that we don't have tools. I don't have a computer. I don't have a smartphone. I don't have data. And that is the reason I had to go to the permanent secretaries, because now I'm going to write to them and say, starting next year, each communication officer you have must have a laptop, a computer, and data. You know, that is a starting point. There is, you know, some say that, hey, but they have their personal phones. But if we are standardizing branding and our representation, the quality of the picture has to be the same across the board, isn't it? These communication officers don't really earn a lot. So they might not afford the kind of phone that is required to take that kind of image that I want. So we need to facilitate them. And these are some of the things that we are starting with, coming up with these requirements and communicating to all PSs to make sure that their communication officers have that. You know, if I tell you to dig, go to the garden and dig, and I have not given you the tools, to blame you for not digging might not be really just, you know, justifiable or fair enough. But let me equip you, skill you, and then when you fail, I say, okay, pack your bags, you have failed. So that we shall only get to that level when we have done our part. Because we also, that is our responsibility as government. Then on the side of branding, yes, we came up with branding guidelines, but we have also been intentional. I think there is an initiative that we started with UCC called the Golden Posts, you know, encouraging these bloggers and young people that when you're moving across the country and you see anything beautiful about Uganda, post it. Because the more positive posts you have for the, you know, we are 45 million. Just imagine if we had 30 million posts. Today, when I meet a GIC of people, I say, but government has, I don't know how many hundreds of communication officers. But we struggle. You know? Yeah, you beat all of them combined. That is very true. So you struggle to know, we are a force of, 300 plus. What are we doing? But well, they come and say, you have not equipped me, you have not retooled me. Now we are going to do that and see whether the status will change. And I believe it will improve. Then we have also developed, as we were, Ministry of ICT is leading the automation of the program for the parish development model. And one of the assignments, our assignment is to digitize that program. So we have developed a system, comprehensive. It's still under development because we are building modules to address all the pillars of this model. One of the modules that we have developed that is very popular is the one for registration and financial inclusion. You all know that people have got money, isn't it? How did they get the money? We registered them and even identified who is eligible to get this money. But just imagine if there was no automation of that process, what would be going on? Even the negativity about the program would be, would be in the moon or at another level. But we have been able to distribute this money informed by data. So in addition, we had developed a module called the Citizen Participation and Interaction Portal, where we want to get feedback from the public. But, we get feedback from the public about what they feel or about the services government is delivering, but also that portal should be a medium of communication of government to the citizen to respond. We talked about government hiding. This portal is going to help us to come out to engage with the public, have a conversation with the public, make government feel like it's a human being, that you can speak to them, they can fault, they can do what, but they can also respond. And this government citizen interaction portal is going to be hosted because it is largely, digital conversations and comms. It's hosted with the Government Citizen Interaction Center. However, the Government Citizen Interaction Center cannot succeed on its own to manage that portal. We have to have all the teams in the different ministries, departments, and agencies on board to give us timely information. If somebody, for example, posted a pothole in some area, today we suffer with potholes, and someone posted, these are the potholes in Kampala. GCIC cannot respond to what it's going to do about the pothole. It has to be Ministry of Works. So there has to be a link between GCIC, Ministry of Works, and then we also have to do, some service level agreements. When I send you this query, how long does it take you to respond? In that way, we shall be an effective government. If somebody found an old post of, what was this box that we had? That one. Now, if someone found an old pic and said, okay, now government is under siege with this box, how long will it take health to say, no, that is an old post, for us to communicate? That is the kind of, forum that we are putting up, and come the next financial year, all this is going to be up and running. I've talked about the training and capacity building, and also positioning our country. Yes, we have done the branding, but we have also done scanty, I think a number of entities, tourism, Ministry of ICT, after getting our business process outsourcing policy approved by Cabinet, that policy has a role of ensuring that we brand Uganda as a destination for ICT investment. So we have to do branding and branding campaigns. But countries that do big and aggressive branding campaigns even they call them some, is it runs or walks? I've forgotten the name. Yeah, road shows, that's the word I was looking for. They do aggressive road shows and go and market their countries. Today, I think when you go, I've been to Saudi Arabia and find, big, huge banners, or what do you call those branding signposts? Billboards. You find billboards of, Philippines promoting itself as the best service provider. How do you think they get there? It's intentional. if Uganda also goes and does that, you know, promoting tourism in some other countries, people will come. Because every day I wake up, I see this billboard, I even see some content changing. That is a kind of effort that we have to do. But we are doing it in a manner that is not impactful because we are not working as one government. ICT gets some little resources. I told you we have zero budget. Then I look around there and get some small shillings and say, okay, let us go on TV, let us go on that, but we need to, this committee should come up with solutions on what is more impactful. We also have started a program on UBC. It started in October last year called The Front Bench. I don't know how many of you watch UBC, but it's the one capturing here. UBC has a program called The Front Bench. This program was endorsed and by the president in cabinet, where every minister and permanent secretary have to come and talk about what their ministry does. And not only what their ministry does, but also address public concerns. You know, if it is Ministry of Justice, you have to talk about why you're delaying court cases and all these things. You know, we have to respond to the issues that citizens are facing. If it is Ministry of ICT, you know, internet costs, you know, we are not getting connectivity, national parks, etc. And therefore, I'm not getting tourists. That's what Amos will always tell me. And I say, yes, I am going to do this in the next 3 years. You're going to see internet. So Moses, I think, talked about we do promise, but sometimes we promise with facts. Yeah, when I promise, and also when I fail, I should let you know why I have not really met my promise. Because, you know, we are not angels. Some things might go wrong along the way, but being openly and honestly accountable is very key as a government, and we are using this program to do the same. But I'm very well aware that there are very many segments of audiences. Maybe not everybody listens to UBC. So we also have a podcast called the Ugandan Podcast, hosted by the Ministry of ICT. This podcast has been around for 3 years now. And we know that the young people don't watch TV, they don't read newspapers. So we need to cater for all audiences. How do we manage print media? How do we manage television? Television also has segments. The people who watch UBC maybe are not necessarily the ones who watch some other stations that are not UBC. And then, yeah, those who watch the podcast are also a certain age. So how do you tailor all these programs to fit those target of the audiences? And through that, we shall be able to promote our country, but also be accountable to our citizens. So I was just giving you kind of, you know, some of the things that we are doing and that are really trying to address this issue of, you know, negative publicity, negative communication. And with that, as a team, as this committee, we need to sit and agree on what are the low-hanging fruits that we need to start with to be impactful. What should we do in the medium term and in the long term as we look for the resources? Because resources can never be enough. And communication is really capital intense, very capital intense. I didn't also appreciate, you know, appreciate that before, but now I do. For you, and the thing about communication is like investing in your child's education. Right from childhood, you invest, you see this child growing, crawling in Pampers, they get out, they are not adding value to you. But the day they get maybe their first paycheck and become independent and become responsible, that is when you'll appreciate what you have invested. So similarly, communication is the same thing. You will invest and think you're sinking money in that deep hole. But the day you start reaping the benefits of positive communication, you won't look back. So all the economies that are doing that have invested, have really reaped big, and we should borrow a leaf. That's why I told you that we should benchmark, but maybe we don't need to benchmark anymore, but now talk about the live solutions that we need to deal with. So ladies and gentlemen, as I wind up, I just needed to give you an overview, and I think I have done. While I was talking about the roles of this committee, I've also talked about what we are doing in terms of what we have done so far in terms of addressing some of these challenges. But I really appreciate the effort that the team has been doing behind the scenes. I'm not very active on that social media platform, but I'm in Kamoli. I see every day what happens. And yeah, I see the fights, I see the responses, I've seen the learning curve. Of course, today when health says they are not in a hurry to communicate when it's crisis, we appreciate, the effort that has gone into that. But how do we educate the whole of government to appreciate that is the kind of operation we have to do? One thing that we need to also focus our energies on is preparing for crisis communication. Of course, Adam has talked about kind of giving us insights into how to do this. But I also think, of course, when a crisis comes, it belongs to the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance is spearheading communication, but I can't talk on behalf of health. I can't, when a crisis happens, I can't speak on behalf of foreign affairs if there is some diplomacy issues, etc. So we should think about, crisis committees for different sectors and committees that have all, stakeholders on this committee. Of course, for example, if it is a case in health, health takes the lead, but we have tourism to inform you health that, well, you're planning to communicate this, but this will be the impact. We have agriculture that, as you're doing this, this will be the impact. You don't know the impact that we have had with the groundnuts, or all these issues. We should therefore not handle crisis individually as entities, but look at how to collectively do it. And I think if we set up or recommend some of these constitutions in time, then we can be able to plan given the protocols that will come out of this committee. So the committee has a lot of work to do. I know if communication fails, we'll have failed as a committee. If we succeed, of course, the government of Uganda and the country will have succeeded. When you fail, they see you as an individual failure. When there is a win, they don't see you, they see the win, and but at the end of the day, we are looking for the wins, and as a country, we shall benefit big from effective and positive communication. So I will end my remarks and contribution here by saying, let us all work collaboratively. If we identify any skill sets we require, you have said you need journalists in government, but how do we get the current team get to that level that we want? And for that, I will be able to drive that personally as a PS of ICT, because that is my responsibility of the human resource in government when it comes to communication. But we need to agree on guidelines. We need to review what needs to be improved for us to communicate, and then we shall take it up to the leadership. But just know that the will is there. The head of public service herself has put down her foot on communication. Asking every entity, you tell me what you have done in line with communication, what guidelines do you have for communication. But at the end of the day, if we are to communicate consistently or do things consistently, this committee has a big job to play in guiding on what should be done, and then we trickle it down to the last person. I thank you very much and congratulate you all, the members of this committee, and look forward to successful implementation of effective communications for the government of Uganda. Thank you.
That over 80% of journalists in Uganda earn less than 1 million shillings. So this puts them in the context of being either sometimes compromised, or if they are sticking to their true values of journalism, then sometimes they are left to mirror the society that they see. And it's true that journalism will not always tell only the good, because telling the good alone then what happens when there is bad? Then for me now, I want to understand how is this committee going to help us address the factual gaps that do exist, okay? If there is an aflatoxin challenge, how are we going to address it? Because I'm a journalist, that's my job, okay? How am I going to address it? I would like to be guided on that. Then the speed of response. Today, artificial intelligence can dish out a video, can dish out an audio, a text, faster than you can type. Okay? Faster than Mr. Amos is writing right now a statement. But before he finishes that statement, a picture of Museveni has already come out. I was watching a YouTube live yesterday. I'm summarizing. I was watching a YouTube live yesterday, and the YouTube live was an AI of Ibrahim Traore trying to decipher the, trying to put France in a negative light. But I noticed that this video was looping, and I also noticed Ibrahim Traore is not a very fluent English speaker. Now, I came to understand that this has been an agenda that has been pushed. I do not know why, but you go on TikTok, go on Facebook, go on YouTube, Ibrahim Traore is now trending. Now, beyond just trending, so many people are riding on that narrative that he's an African unionist. He's trying to fight for the agenda for Africa, okay? So I realize, yes, he's speaking in the interest of Africa, but it is an AI. So this debate happens late last night, yesterday in the newsroom, and the person is like, no, but he is defending Africa's what? Position, whether it is AI or not. Then I'm like, it's good, but it's not ethical. Because he doesn't know this is being said in his persona, okay? And even if he supported it, how about when the creator of this content uses it to push a certain agenda? So the speed at which we also address some of these communications, how are we going to address that? Maybe lastly is I've always told my colleagues that we need a professional, media professional body yesterday. We've heard about UJA, Uganda Journalists Association. Unfortunately, I do not subscribe to, or I do not align with their way of doing things. We've talked about the Media Council. Emmanuel told me about the other body. What's the other body? The one that's in. All right, but we all see that all these bodies are inactive. Okay? So I feel like we need answers on how this committee is going to help harness and bring up some of these bodies to actually sieve out, because our guest keynote speaker spoke about the variations in the kinds of journalists, the citizen journalist, the part-time journalist. Was it the part-time? The freelance journalist, and then of course the full-time journalist. Okay? But if we have a professional body, we can sieve out those that are professional, and perhaps government can decide to partner. You might not necessarily employ them, but decide to partner at an event like this. Let's have those that are accredited. Okay? So those are some of few thoughts. There are sentiments, comments, but also within there are questions.
Whether the committee has a mechanism, it will go to the PS, has a mechanism of communicating or bringing order in some, because most of our bad image is about the politics and health, because that's what we find mainly on social media and moving out there. But we have political actors on either sides. Now we are in-house. I'm talking about government. Abductions, what you brought out. There's something which was trending weeks ago. Someone comes out and says, I did it. It really disturbs. So how do you want a journalist to defend such? How would you wish someone to write about that? Someone who has authority over it, he's proud of saying, I did it. and it moves all over BBC, Reuters, wherever, and that's the picture we have. So, do you have a mechanism of engaging all those people as a committee? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Collins Mwes from NTV. Okay, for purposes of communication, this will save all of us the trouble. The audience you're trying to communicate, let's start with the audience. The audience you're trying to communicate to is the same we are trying to communicate to. When this government came to power, it did something good called UPE, then it upgraded to USE. So each and every village you go to, save for Karamoja and the extreme north and refugee communities, at least there is a P4 graduate. And those people can read, can reason. And worse part, they have senior 6 people. Those people understand whatever policy you put down. So if you are to communicate to them, you have to tell them the truth as is. There are no corners about it. Then the other thing is, maybe for communications purposes, if you can adopt the way security forces work, the communications teams of security forces. Yes, they are the leading people, they are the leading customers of bad publicity. But by the time we get to that bad publicity, like you have negotiated with the communications office on what to put out, and that's the minimum. That's the minimum that will do minimum harm. So, but when you talk to other communications officers like Emma, he will give you an answer in the National Development Plan, which is not in tandem with what's on the ground, and you have no option but to hang him. Then the other thing is you need to speak from the ground up. So most of the things you put out are in national development plans, but on the ground, those things are yet to reflect. So how often do you update that information? So, because there are times when you ask, let's say, a minister, and he will tell you, no, every district there is a national health center, there is a seed school at every sub-county, there is... You're like, okay, let's go to the ground. And they don't even, and there is not even a district office. All the stuff that is there, it's the LC5 driver. And then the other thing is the data, it still revolves around the data. Corroborating what's in the government paper plans and what's on the ground. Then the other thing is orienting government officers on the weight of their positions. Like if you are an MP, you say something. I mean, an MP, you're taken serious. If you're a minister, I mean, you've seen them, you say something, we shall also take you serious. We have no option, but because you're an official position. Then the other thing is, I know you're communications officers, but then how do you control your bosses on what they speak when they speak the truth by mistake?
I'm Nawakoza Sarah. I work for the New Vision, so I'm also in-house. Yeah. Me, the only thing that I wanted to talk about, I report Parliament, but I also represent the print media journalists on the UPPA. So the lady, you're so biased about media, but we are good people. And especially, yeah, she's so biased. I think if someone even said they should get guns. Yeah, but we try so much. And I'll speak for New Vision. The stories that we get with facts. But when we reach our bosses, they say, this story, you cannot run it because we are a government paper. Even if you have facts, but it's a very bad story. So we are good people. Even in our media houses and in our meetings, we try to cover up. But sometimes there are facts that you cannot hide. I know at Parliament, my fellow journalists always tell me, your new vision. You won't even talk about it. This is for Daily Monitor, if it's a really bad story. But we also have a gap, especially government officials. Now, like I heard there is someone from Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We look for those people and they hide. Even if it's Ministry of Health, a crisis comes up and they're hiding. You call their phones, they don't pick. You look for them, they don't want to surface. So what we resort to Siatini that is giving us bad information. We resort to the people that are available because people need information. And that's our job because that's what pays us. So wherever people need information, we give it to them. So if the government officials who are supposed to give us the information to give to people don't do their role, we resort to whoever is around. Because like every month I do the performance of the economy. So you call people, you call a minister, I see we are exporting electricity. Where can I get the numbers? Which countries are we exporting to? They don't know. Some don't know, some don't even pick their calls. So we resort to what's available. So I hope this committee will try to bridge that gap, the information gap, so that we get the numbers, so that we inform the public, because we are the mirror. You see, people meet us, like when I go to my village, people think I know everything. So they ask me, okay, what happened? We saw Mpuga did this and this. So what exactly is happening? Who is Bobby Wine working for? So people think we know. So if us journalists don't know, that means we won't inform the people. And we play a very big role. So I hope this committee works with us. But then also, if you can address the cost of internet, this goes to the PS. Internet has been so high, and it's so hard to get information to people. Then also our pay is so small. Journalists are paid the least, yet we play a very big role. So if this committee can address our pay, and we see that maybe journalists from these credible media houses, because some radio stations pay 5,000 per story. 5,000 a story. So you give a story, they pay you 5,000, and then this 5,000 doesn't even come on time. So what will people do? Because these other companies in the private sector, if a story comes up on a company and you call them, for example, like Nairobi, you tell them, this and this is happening. They'll say, wait, before you write the story, let me see you. And you will receive the money. Why? Yes, even if you want to be ethical, but you need the money because you need to pay rent, you need to do your hair, you need airtime. If you're a man, you need to date a girl. So all these journalists resort to these things because they're compromised. The pay is little. And like the PS said, government doesn't have that budget to kill these bad stories, which are factual. So if we can call the minister and say, Minister, this and this is, and the minister, and the minister says, come and we talk, and you talk. That's everyone.
So now, because government doesn't have the budget, like you said, sometimes we suffer the brunt of you being broke, in quotes. However, I feel, because I've seen so many cases of unethical reporting, one which has affected us. I'll give you an example from New Vision. Indeed, you're in-house, but I'll give you an example recently. It was so sad. So we launched Hidden Uganda in the US. So at that premiere in the US, it coincided with the time when we had drought here. So that one of your headlines, actually the big headline was human beings now, I think, drinking water with animals. So this Mzungu wants to come here for his honeymoon after watching Hidden Uganda, but what does he do? He Googles. So when he Googles, what comes out? That New Vision headline. And because they know that you're a paper, he came and asked the Ugandan, so you guys actually drink water with animals? Like, are we safe? Do you even have safe water? And so the Ugandan was stuck, to say to him that, but in the lodge or wherever you're going, for sure there's water in the tap. No, but he couldn't even answer. And that was like an isolated incident in Zimbabwe. We also grew up in the village with cattle, know that sometimes you'd go and bathe here, the cow is drink. There was no one who died. However, you can't explain to a Mzungu that, please, that picture is isolated, but from the airport to where you're going, everything is safe. So now we lost a tourist, just like that. But New Vision didn't know. You're here telling me you, in your newsroom, you sit down and decide to depict us. So those are things I know that you don't know. And we're not telling you to lie, okay? Because all these countries have problems worse than ours. But there is a sort of, it's almost as if you have decided among media that if you depict Uganda badly or in negative light, then you are credible. Which is not true, because when this country catches fire, you are all going with your media houses and your very nice headlines. So what I want is that you balance your reporting. It doesn't hurt you to have a good headline for 3 days a week. And then inside there, like on page 34, you can put that story you found with facts and figures which are scary. You know what I mean? Yeah, so you must know that every country is dying to protect their image and perception, and you people indeed are the carriers of this information. So if every day I wake up and I find a bad story, morning, evening, I honestly, even I will wonder what's wrong with my country. And yet, guess what? I live here, I go home. I was telling someone that I get up in the morning, sometimes I don't even see government. Yet government is everywhere, but I'll get up and no one will touch me. I'll go home nicely, come back, eat my food, sleep, and But for other countries, curfew at 7 p.m., you cannot go out to the disco, you can't, there's no concert. You can't explain that to anybody. To these young people who are saying, we want a change, So we want you people to help us. You can hold us accountable, but also be realistic. That is my point. Then to who? The gentleman who said, what did you ask? You said... No, that is one of NTV. That's one of NTV. I was telling you that journalists, do you know that journalists go and look for those ministers who they know will give them the best soundbite? Am I lying? NTV, am I lying? You are the winners, actually, of that one. So you go and find our dear minister who will tell you the economy is on that trajectory, and he will forever be a soundbite, forever and ever, right? So I understand you on the part of wanting to, keep us engaged. But then now, you need to balance, because we have very serious people in government who speak well. Cover them. Have a not at all. Are you sure? No, I doubt. No, she said other point media. But how can you find the minister of finance or the prime minister so easily and make sure you get an interesting soundbite, because these people are they speak so honestly, and then you not find, like, say, another official whose facts you want, and then you claim they're hiding. I doubt, because those are the busiest ministers we have.
Public officers do not want to speak to media, and I think I just talked a little bit about it. There is a phobia for media, but I know that phobia is informed by the fact that media is harsh and will bash you for anything. That is, so people are scared of, being attacked or being quoted, for that matter. It is a fear that people have, but we are trying to educate PSCs, educate ministers that if you don't come out to speak, then the narrative will take its own course by, media will do what it wants. But it is your duty to bring out the information that your ministry is doing, because you best know what your ministry is supposed to do. But of course, that fear is mainly catalyzed by crisis. When it is a crisis, of course, definitely people will hide. But we just need to all sit together and understand and appreciate that in the interest of branding this country, I think it should be an objective for all of us. Media, government, media, it is in your interest. Just imagine if you're known for bad stories. I don't think your life is going to start and end in New Vision for life. You have to grow. You know, you have to grow and maybe become a company secretary someday, or go and be hired by a bigger entity one day, but you will not grow if you're known for that kind of personality. So yeah, it is about looking into ourselves. If people are fearing to, you know, to speak up, maybe fine, now there is this committee, probably talk to members of this committee and say, this is what we want to air, you know, what should we do? We have tried here, we have tried there, and then we can find a way of speaking to these people. I have personally, we started the front bench, I was telling you, but we had a fear of PACs going on this forum, some of them, and even ministers. But then, you know, the beauty about even educating them, because you know, when someone goes into a studio prior to the set going live, they are kind of calmed down, prepared in advance on what is going to ask and all that. But of course, when it comes to a crisis, it's different. It's just about educating them. We have to get better together. But I know that gap is there. But you also have to be responsible. There is responsible journalism, I believe. You have to be responsible to say, okay, if this has failed, let me not just do for the sake of doing until I exhaust all options. I think that is the interest in which we should be. But I've got the fact that you go there because someone else is going to buy off that story, and you will air the one that is bought as opposed to the one that is not bought. So you're also looking for quick money, but that quick money will bring problems one day.
It's more about country building, really, than just the media. If you hear 5,000 shillings a story, if you hear less than, so 1 million shillings is not a small amount of money across broad spectrum of sectors that in agriculture where I come from, 1 million shillings at the farm is okay, but in Kampala it's a different story. The things you have to spend on. So I'm kind of philosophical on this. I think that so China in 1972, I think when Nixon visited, the government and the public, the common need of an ordinary person was a bicycle, a radio, a watch, and a sewing machine. If you had those at a household level, you didn't really care what the world is saying, and you respected the fact that you have food, and on that radio there would be one channel, and that channel would have Chairman Mao on it. The reason I'm just giving you that context is that reporting grows out of something. Sometimes we adopt standards of very developed countries, our professions. You must do the 5 Ws, but you come back to a community and culture that requires you to earn, to live, to not split up people. And so I think that there's a bit of crying out. I'm circumspect around this, but I think the media is basically saying, how about some sort of mentorship? Because we are reporting how our society is, and we've been trained to do certain things in a particular way, but these things really, they are not what they are, and even when we do report, we don't get paid, and yet we want to be professional journalists. So I think some sort of mentorship, I didn't intend to speak about this, but I think it's not just training, it's all these empty structures, redundant, inactive, I think that's how they call them. Where are they in making sure that even before she certifies who is a professional reporter, there are places you can go to and you look up to Amos, and Amos teaches you how to do things and live. Mentorship is a very, very big thing in our lives. The Christians know there was a man called Paul. He only wrote. He never went to all the cities, but he mentored some people who did a lot of work. In the Islamic faith, there was a man called Abu Huraira, who was with Prophet Muhammad between Mecca and Medina, that journey, and he wrote a lot of the hadith. So it's mentorship if you want to grow a country, if you want to grow an organization. These people are crying out, 5,000 shillings, what do I do? I need to leave. So I think that it's important. Part of our role as a committee is skill, but mentor and build up. Now, if you don't grow the economy, you see, if you write a bad story, then how are you going to increase your income? Because if you say this fish from this landing, because they have told you and you want a quick story, from this landing site, they used a particular method to catch it, and the people who did that are people of a certain ethnic group. The one who beat them, you go run that story because it pays. But in the long run, 1 ton of fish creates 200 jobs. 1 ton of fish. How? Because every time you produce a ton of fish, you use fish feeds. You use soya, you use maize. Now, Mr. Mandela and Kaujis in Nyenga, they have these 2 large fish feed meals that lack soya, that lack maize. For you to produce 1 ton of fish, you need 800,000 tons of maize. These are all jobs, but you go and say that this fish was caught badly, so Norway cannot buy the fish. You have destroyed a whole value chain. Eh? So we want to increase the income. We have to be responsible. That's why I said Chinese, they had basic needs, and you can see the West says China is not democratic. China is locked up. China, well, it's taking over the world in their lockup. How come they save money? How come they do certain, how come they control certain things that you are not able to control? Our culture has certain elements. You don't insult people. You don't lie about a permanent secretary, things you have not seen, just because you have freedom. Freedom has restrictions. I just want to leave it at that. The one who asked about factual gaps, aflatoxins, I think that was a good question. Our responsibility is to produce facts about aflatoxins, about. That's why we had Dr. Mwambu. So one of our concluding commitments should be that every month we should have, and I think we could even make it fortnightly, let's have a professional in the field. Really show this committee and whoever we want to invite as observers, interrogate this area and be very emphatic, be knowledgeable, so that when I go out I know what to say. So you know, now I'm an older man, I know that I want to cover everything, but I know that in life it's not what you cover, it's what you discover on the journey. You want to finish everything I want to do, but what you discover teaches you how to do the next thing. Restraint is needed in the media if you know that this one is connected to my income. But if you are not connecting these two, if you don't connect the service that Amos gives, because Amos gives you a room, but he buys eggs every day. He buys beans every day. He buys fish every day. He pays an advert every day. These are all jobs connected to what you're trying to do. Destroy Amos, you've destroyed 10 other jobs. Does Britain do it? I think they are careful what they tell the world. They have internal issues. They have immigration issues. For example, you land at Heathrow. Every time I land at Heathrow, I look for the British, the English. There are very few. You see Europeans, few, but you see a lot of Asia. Do they make noise about immigration and chase people? And no, there is a way they handle those issues. That's what I call the collective vision. So let's provide information to them. It's part of mentorship. I don't know if we answered the question on AI. That was an interesting question. I've seen a video circulating. I've not opened it. Been busy. So people who are seated talking about Africa or something. So it's an AI-generated video. I think what they're telling us, PS, is that we need to develop capacity to detect, to go online. There are some modern tools to say this is fake quickly or this is AI-generated, and do it with speed. So how do you build capacity? Technology is just an enabler. I think for me capacity is the thinking, the way to think about things. A hammer is technology. But you can use hammer to knock someone's head or to do a nail. So there'll always be some AI, but who are we and what are we trying to solve is very, very important. That collective way to think. So if we can provide some training on AI, I don't think newsrooms do it, do they? They train you. Good. But we don't have rules of engagement. So if you tell a lie using AI, what do I do in Uganda? Can I have you charged, arrested by police? And is that cybercrime? It's computer misuse. Okay. But I think we need, so think of someone in Mbale, a reporter in Mbale or Mayuge, at some training, GCOF, Watasa, that GCOF group. I really have heard wonderful things from PS. I think they have now come under you. Fantastic. So, anyway, I wanted to end with that somewhere because that's very good. That means that you can set the template. And the template is not to chase away people, but to align them, but have an alignment time period and enforce. So anyhow, the other questions were really answered, of politics, of bring orderliness. I stepped out. Were those answered? The people who are not knowledgeable, who are in government, who can't answer, let me not go there. I just wanted, so 3 things. Huh? So suppose, Marcella, you spoke about regulation in your paper, and I thought of UCC and enforcement. When do you take away my radio license? How many times can you warn me before you can take action? And you should do it without fear or favor if I undermine the work of the country. Now, the role of this committee is to say, yes, we back you. This is not right, to say, I found Margaret doing 1, 2, 3, 4, but she wasn't even there. And then I have people come around that lie and enhance it. And then Margaret is trying to fix something in Algeria. By the time, God forbid, she returns, her marriage is in trouble. It's very, very bad, eh? Yes.
Employed or recruited if you're not a registered teacher. And therefore to be by government, for government. Now, journalism on the other side is mainly private sector led. So we have to improve. I know UCC regulates media houses. So we just need to look at the regulation of UCC in terms of the regulation of media, media houses. How does it consider under the regulation the professionals that they're taking on? Are they required to be registered with Media Council? The same way we do, under procurement, somebody has to show that they're paying NSCC for employees. So similarly, we need to come up with an enforcement that requires media houses to have their employees registered with the Media Council. That is something we just need to, Yeah, we have some of these regulations, but the enforcement, like I think Adam talked about, enforcement of the policies, of the guidelines is what we need to look into. So if this committee can identify all these gaps and then come up with recommendations, and if a recommendation is for the regulator, then we task them to enforce that regulation. Yeah.
In the UK, there is the Press Complaints Authority. In the UK, there is the Press Complaints Authority, which any individual or organisation can complain to. And if somebody is found to have breached the regulations and told something that was false, they have to print a retraction, but they don't have to put the retraction in the same place. So it doesn't have to be on the front page, it could be on page 35, a tiny little thing in the corner. This was going to be toughened up. I don't know if, Audric, you've heard of the Leveson inquiry. In the media in the UK were very bad. They were hacking phones and doing very, very naughty things. And there was a proposal, a committee, a parliamentary committee, we're going to put a lot of much tougher regulations in. But let's just say Rupert Murdoch and the press barons got to the previous government and they backed off it. And the other thing you can do in the UK is actually sue them in the law courts for libel and slander. But that takes a lot of money, so only the rich can do that.
So Media Council, we will find out. Same with regulators. I think the third one was what Dr. Mwambu shared with us. This external witness who says, I am not government, but I can tell you that is not correct. The rules on food safety are this. I think to do this monthly discussions, if we can, starting this is early May, can we say May 30th, have a specific session answering these and have a keynote speaker in a key area of interest. If it's security, to explain, we'll find those people. If it is whatever it is, that number 3. Number 4 that I picked are those systems, processes to avoid chaos. So we are going to take best case studies. So this ministry should have like a strategy session, like a strategy desk, and then an operational desk. There are people who think through. I heard him say there's one that attack. You really need that. So sometimes those who defend and attack need a halfway house that think. Yes. So I think let's think through these. You have media center, it is there. You have all sorts of groups. Maybe integration could help us strategy and execution.
You can have 3 things. You have a third team, which is the research team, which gives the information. The other 2 teams.
Good. So that was number 4. The final one I caught, I think it's the PS has answered. This standardization, when you took over, you are beginning to standardize. So you have done digital skills assessment, fantastic. You've standardized titles. Now you need to retrain and redeploy. I really think that if I cannot speak very well, I have no interest in issues of a particular nature. What am I doing in that position? You take me from Masaka and put me in another. I know that those are hard decisions for people, but how are we going to manage? You keep saying the same problem over and over. No, now I'm happy really to hear that Dr. Zawede has authority. So let's work with you. Let's work together to ensure that GCOF, the departments of government, we suffer. Those of us who are on the front line, we suffer when there is no response or where there is even arrogance, born of ignorance. Someone doesn't know, they are also arrogant. You say, but can I just help you? Huh? Can I help you? No. Okay. Then you move, then I do it. No, I can't move. I can't do it. Why are you here? It frustrates young people, it frustrates those media people, and then we are back to our weddings and our funerals and our, no. This day, we have put it to some use from 2 o'clock. Do we want to come back after 1 month? Say we are. No. Now that you have authority and the president has given you this committee and it sits, I want to end with how do we sit this? Where does it sit so that all of us can now feed it? Now, a time is going to come where multiple things are happening. There is a shooting of a journalist, whatever it is. There is bad food. There is a hotel that has served food with cockroaches. And there is an NRM candidate beating another. All of them at the same time. If we do not have a seat where we can just go crazy and mess up. So that for me is, I think, my final one on how to, because if you have the right people in the right place, things move. Then we now can find resources. Then now we can do what needs to be done.